4 years ago, I was introduced to this guy, and he was completely mental unstable, creepy, and stalker. In fact, he was the most creepiest guy I ever met in my entire life. But the fact is that he was not even like that even in the beginning when I first was introduced to him. He was completely opposite. He was sweet, gentle, a very caring guy. But it wasn't until later on when I first started dating him when his true colors was eventually revealed. And everyone, if you had a faint heart of violence and other parts or like that, and this story is not for you. So I'm just to give you the warning right now. And and this happened around December 2018. So let me just start from that. My name is Abigail. I'm currently 28, but this happened when I was just 23 years old. And like I said, it is a very long story, and it's gonna be a quite of a roller coaster story. But just to be mentioned small detail, the guy is no longer part of my life, and the fact he is no longer to be bothering me ever again. It all happened during my best friend Rachel's wedding. I was just happy to be invited and being the maid of honor. But we even have been best friends since elementary. I saw her as a sister, and when she first then introduced me to her, well then, fiancé Scott, he was actually the same age as us, and I was so happy for her to find this lucky guy. And when she asked me to be her maid of honor to her wedding, I said yes immediately. And I was just happy though. I mean, I was even introduced to some of Scott's friends and some of his family, and even during the wedding reception, or what I call the party, I was actually introduced by Rachel to a guy named Robin, and he turned out to be a friend of Scott, and he was only 1 year older. And and this is the guy that was going to change my life for the drastically badly. And he was actually very friendly. We actually had a lot of good time there at the party, at the wedding reception, or the wedding party, which I call it. And he asked me for a dance, and we did, and we started to get to know each other. But by the end of the wedding reception, I gave Robin my number, and only by a couple of days, he actually did ask me out, and I said yes. To be funny note about this, I actually had been single for quite some time since my since my last relationship was back in high school. And we started dating, and I was just happy to have potentially found a great guy to be with. After all, he's a close friend to Scott, to my best friend's husband, and even Scott did tell me a little bit more about Robin. And the more I knew about him, the more I fell for him. And, well, it didn't take long for us, for after a few months, we actually moved in. And we were still in our supposed honeymoon phase. I mean, I was really happy that we moved into our own apartment. And, but it wasn't shortly until some things started to add up. I mean, I had a well paid job at the retail store in town, and he worked as mechanic in town. Things start to change, and for the bad way. He, a lot of his personality started to change. There was only a couple of months, or I believe it was at least 1 or 2 months after we had moved in, I started seeing that he was very obsessive. Even when I was talking to our male neighbors, or even some else, a guy at work, he Third, he started interrogating me when I get home if I talk to any guys. I mean, working as a clerk at this retail store, I had to talk to male customers or even my male coworkers. And he started to tell me that those guys are just probably start flirting with me or I flirt with them, which is completely insane. I mean, I am very much dedicated to my relationship with Robin, but he told me, Abigail, you are really starting to acting strangely. You are not allowed to be wearing any makeup or any such revealing clothes or anything like it. And in fact, he started to change my entire wardrobe. He told me I'd only been allowed to be wearing any such baggy shirts, pants, so I won't be revealing much of my figure, which to me I was very defensive of. I didn't care if I'm wearing to show off my figure or not. I didn't even care much about that even before. And but that was just small things. Then he started to control me what to eat and how much I was even allowed to eat. And he started to insulating me from my family and friends. And in fact, he told me that he even told me to quit my job so I could be bored at home and provide for him for dinner when he get home. And he told me that women shouldn't be working since their role is to be at home raising the kids and cooking and cleaning. He was very much old school's mindset. And honestly, I don't mind to be cooking, cleaning if I was have a day off or something, but be at home at all times. I mean, I told him a few times that even women could provide for themselves also. I mean, I did that even before I even met him. But he told me that was just probably a small setback, only until I would find the right guy, the right man to show me my rightful place. And even though I did argue with him about it, but he called my boss and told them that I'm quitting and I should be focused at home. I mean, his work as mechanic was well paid job for sure. I mean, my job was decent enough. I mean, I could have been provided for even if he had lost his job. I would still been able to pay the bills and all that for us. That was well paid for it. But I tried when he told me what he did, I lost it. I told him how dare he do that behind my back before even informing me. But he told me that shut up. This is your doing. This is your duty to be at this the home future wife. I was stunned. I was like he started controlling more and more of my life. And in fact, he even told me that I wasn't even allowed to even talk to any of my male friends because, according to his statement, that they would start flirting with me and seduce me and try to run away with me, and I was dumbfounded. And especially some of the male friends that I have known for quite some time, and in fact, he told me that I wasn't even allowed to talk to his own friend, Scott, which my best friend introduced me to me first before I even met Robin. I was stunned. I mean, even when I tried to have my statement about this or even comment about this, he just raised his voice and said, "You will be you're allowed to be speak when I tell you you're not. Until I just tell you that, you're not even allowed." So, and and even he told me I wasn't even allowed to talk to my own family, like even my own parents. I was stunned. I mean, I asked them, or just so if I can't even talk to my friends, what about my family? I told him, if my family doesn't even hear from me for a while, they probably get worried and they will come over to still talk to me. And he told me that he will take care of that. I was like, okay. So, and he even made a password on my computer that he want, so I wouldn't be able to use it. I mean, I use the computer to pay the bills and rent on my device, and even use it to do, well, other things. And even my phone was taken away from him, from me, which I had my friends, and well, he just threw it away or something. I don't know what he did with it. And he even had my key taken away from me so that I wouldn't be able to leave my apartment. He locked the door from outside, even though I could open the door from inside. And if he found out that I have been talking to any guys, or even my neighbors, but the only guy I was allowed to talk to was the landlord and the maintenance guy, because they were older guys, they were like in their 40s and 50s. I mean, my parents was like in their late 40s and early 50s. Shouldn't that be counted as well? I asked him about it, and he said immediately no. From now on, you are not allowed to be in talk to anyone unless I approve it. He was started controlling my life more. And the fact, shortly after he'd made this, I didn't do anything else. I just been watching some TV at home, at the apartment. That was one thing that I could do. I mean, I mean, okay, I asked him, but what about if I started watching movies about different guys in it? He said, that's fine. I mean, it's like that I can be actually talking to those guys. So, okay, but he would demand I had the place cleaned and the dinner ready before he get home. And one time when I didn't have dinner even made or even was even finished, he literally yelled at me to be just such lazy, and it's a word I prefer not to mention. So, and every time if I wanted to go just going out, he had to be with me as my bodyguard slash owner, what he claimed to be it. So, when we were in public, for some reason, this was the first time he actually made a physical attack or assault or something. We were actually in the middle of the street in downtown, and I said something, I don't remember what it was, but he slapped me right in my face, and I was stunned. He had never led any physical assault like that before. He had only been verbal abusing me, but physical abuse, that was the first ever mention of that. And in fact, in front of people in the middle of the day, people were starting to just like stop staring, and then he just told me, just let go, and we went home. You may think that was the only time he did it. Oh no. He kept abusing me, slapping my face, even gave some bruises and even a few black eyes. One time I had a black eye so bad and I couldn't even see from the eye. But luckily though, I didn't lose my vision from it, but I usually get a slap in my face or even bruises. And since I was insulated in the apartment, none of the neighbors never even had any idea what was even going on behind the doors. The fact the walls was thick enough, there were concrete walls, so that there was not much the neighbors could hear much about it. He controlling my life, and I was really getting worried. I mean, he started to control my life a lot more. And now that I couldn't be in, I started to realize what kind of guy Robin were. I mean, like I said, he was very controlling, very obsessive, since he literally controlled what I was to do, and I wasn't even allowed to talk to anyone. And what had happened if one of my friends did show up when he was at home, I only told him I was fine, had been a lot of busy lately, and I couldn't talk to them. So when he asked me if I had any visitors. I told him that I had to be honest. If I lied, and if he found out I was lying to him, he would slap me, or even worse, not the black guy. So I told him that one of my friends showed up. He started to get angry, but I told him that I didn't let him in, and I only told him that I was busy at the moment I couldn't talk. So they left, which somehow calmed him down. And this abuse started getting a lot more worse. And leaving him wasn't that easy either. First of all, I wouldn't have to find out a way to get out of an apartment. Even though I somehow he has even forgot that I can just open the door from the inside, and he probably believed that can only be opened, closed, and locked from outside. So things was eventually getting a lot more worse. You see, I found out that I was pregnant, and I had a choice that I could just simply had ended my pregnancy, but the thing is, I would have to leave the apartment, and I don't even know how long I would have been away, and he would have literally found out that I left the apartment and went to the hospital and had ended my pregnancy. And like I said earlier in start of a relationship, women are supposed to be at home taking care of the kids, raising the children, and clean and cook. And that supposed is probably meant I supposed being pregnant, have his babies or his children so that I could stay at home permanently. But I had enough. One other thing is that the being in such abusive relationship, I had no idea what kind of things that he would react to me when I was getting later in my stage of my pregnancy, like morning sickness, if I had to go to the hospital, and for doctor's appointments and all that. I don't even know how much bad he would suffer, even though he probably wouldn't punish me in my stomach to lose a baby. I doubt that. I mean, he said that women are supposed to be carrying children to raise them. Even though, but I don't know what he would even do even after the baby is born. If he couldn't get sleep or the baby is crying and blame me for all that. So to me, my relationship with Robin was completely over. And I hadn't even told him about my pregnancy after all. If he knew about it, it was only getting worse. And I know for the fact. Because if I even told him about it, they were only in time before I start showing and he will realize that I was pregnant. And that will only make things a lot more worse. So I only had a few weeks on me to figure out a way to get out. I was scared that he will find out even before then. And I didn't have a phone. I couldn't even call my parents or even a friend. I couldn't even just go to a neighbor. I haven't even been talked to my neighbors in a few months now. And I was getting worse. So after a few weeks, shortly after that Robin went to work, I grabbed a backpack and grabbed some of my things in it, like some clothes and some of the money I had. And I left the apartment and I took a taxi to my parents' house. My parents lived a little in the suburbs of the town, and I was as shortly as my mom saw me by the door, she was just stunned and happy to see me. But my dad was also home, and when he saw I was there, they questioned why I was even there, or why I took a taxi, since Robin could probably drop me off. But then I broke down. I literally started crying, and bawling my eyes out. I was bawling my eyes out. My mom pulled me in, and I sat down on the couch, still crying. They demanded to know exactly what been happening, because they haven't barely even saw me for months. They even heard from me. When they find out my phone has been deactivated, or is being turned off, and since I don't even have a home phone anymore, and when they asked Robin, he only made the same statement that I was just busy at home taking care of things, and that's it. So I told him how he had been acting, and luckily that I still had some physical bruises and even a black eye which I was forced to cover with some makeup, and I removed that, and my dad was furious. He couldn't believe it. I But something that my mom did was probably that would save my life much later on. She took photos of my bruises and my black eye, and she we actually was really happy when I told them about my pregnancy. They were just happy to that they were going to have their first grandchild. But I told them I wasn't sure if I even want to keep the baby or not. Of course, my parents were completely understandable, but in the end, I decided to keep it. That was only like the later day because they did that later the same day when I decided. It was also my baby should not be punished for what her or his dad have been acting. So, when I realized Robin would be get home around 7 p.m. and shortly after they get home, he started calling my parents to demand that they didn't know where I were, and he threatened with violence if I didn't come back to him. But my parents told him that they knew what happened, and he just laughed and said, "That's all lies." Then when my dad asked him to demand to get to know where I get my bruises and my black eye, he just simply said I was stupid, clumsy, and all that. And even with my older brother William, when he told about this, he grabbed the phone from my dad and told him to back off. He didn't want mind to beat some sense into Robin, but Robin just laughed and said, "You won't even get away from this place alive." He made a death threat to my brother. What he didn't know, my brother is a very strong. He goes to gym quite often, actually. And during this time, he started harassing my family and friends to know where I were and and to demand to have them, all of them, try to make me go back to be with him. He promised a change, which I know now he wouldn't even do that. And the fact, I was getting worried. But during this time, an old friend of mine from high school named Benjamin reached out to me. We started hanging out, and I'm glad that at least Robin didn't know about that, otherwise I would have been scared. But Benjamin told me, after I told him all about Robin and his behavior, that Benjamin was a police officer and he would protect me and himself and my family. Even though when I told Ben I was pregnant with Robin's baby, he told me that even that he knew about it, he would actually accept it. And somehow, Robin found out about my pregnancy. I don't know how, but if he saw me in public or something, I don't know. And he even wanted to be back. He wanted to be back in his baby's life since he knows it's my baby, or that it was his baby though. So when I was in public with my parents, he literally walked up to me and asked to marry him, which I said no immediately. We left the place almost so fast as we could. And he even showed up to my parents' house and did the same thing. But I told him, leave or I will call the police. But then he told me both times that the police will believe him rather than me, since I'm a stupid woman and doesn't know anything. And I was stunned. Even one small detail that Robin didn't know, Benjamin, my new boyfriend, was a police officer. So at least if he told me that no police would even believe me, I had one backup. My life was getting a living nightmare. I would have to either my dad or my brother if I had to go to the for the hospital for doctor appointment. And when I went to labor later that same year, well, let's say things started to acting a lot more. When my daughter was born, which I named her Vicky, Robin demanded to see her more and even went to court to have the right to see his own daughter. But I went there with my family, provided with the evidence how unstable Robin is and he said all that proof was fake and that he should have sole custody of Vicky. But it didn't work out for him because when he was showing in the court how he was flipping out and the judge actually was on my side. He saw he was that Robbie was unstable and unfit to as a parent and was forbidden to even get near Vicky or me. For a year after this, I didn't hear a single word from Robin. And frankly, to be told, I didn't even care what he was doing at the time. But I was worried though. If one day he wouldn't just whatever blue, he could just show up again. But anyways, I didn't see him for a whole year, which was the peaceful time I had in a long time. When Vicky started to get started preschool, I had almost forgotten about Robin. But at this point, me and Benjamin had got married, and he actually had adopted Vicky as his own daughter. But one day when I was just at work, preschool called me and said that my brother had picked up Vicky earlier, but I told him that wasn't possible since my brother was out of town, and I called and asked Benjamin if he had done it, but he hasn't. So I started to panic. I left my job and went straight to the preschool, and when I went there, I asked one of the staff to describe the man who took my daughter. And to my absolute most worst fear that happened. Turned out, Robin had been taking my daughter even since he wasn't even allowed. I called my husband and told him a few of his friends officers went on red alert. Even my parents drove around in town looking for him. But we couldn't find Robin anywhere. I was getting worried. Would I even find my daughter alive? Or has he even left town? Or perhaps even the state by now? There was no way to say where he would even gone. I mean, he wasn't even at his own home or his work. Even when me and Benjamin reached out to some of his very few friends that he still had, asked them where they really can find Robin. But no one didn't know. No one of them had even seen him for days. Except for one of them told me at least that there was one place that we could look for him. Robin's old farm outside town could be a potential place. The police scouted the area, and right, he was there. But they didn't know if he was armed or not, or if he would even hurt his own daughter if they saw them. But luckily though, the police managed to sneak in the farm building without being seen. And they got in, tased him. Luckily though, my daughter was in another room in a small bed, asleep, when this all happened. In fact, she even slept through all of this happened, all the commotions, which is a surprise to me. But he went straight to jail for his behavior. But his lawyer tried to get him his sentence less, but it didn't work. But a few days after this, it did then had something a peace for once, but it wouldn't last long. One morning, I received a call from Benjamin. One of me was at work. He told me that Robin had escaped jail and he had already sent two officers to guard the house until Robin was caught. Which, when I was it, when Benjamin told me this, I was freaked out. During this time, I was very on high alert, even the slightest sound, even the knock, the doorbell, or anything. I didn't even know if he would be take out the officers and hurt me, grab my daughter, and leave. And during this time, even my best friend Rachel had me company while I was there. Scott, William, my older brother showed up to as extra guard bodyguards. Luckily though, 2 days later, Robin was caught and was sent back to jail. I was received a call a few days later after Robin's recapture, and I was told not to worry about Robin ever again. You see, when he realized that he couldn't be able to see his daughter ever again, or even has not been given more sentence of his extend his time, he hanged himself in his own cell. He couldn't stand to be in jail without being able to see his own daughter, even though I didn't wish this for my worst enemy to have them just kill himself. No. But at least I had not to be worried about this anymore. It just it really scared me so much. Even for the 2 days when he was out, it scared me what he would even would do. I mean, I'm pretty sure he would just kill me and take our daughter and leave somewhere else and raising her alone and just perhaps even brainwash her to believe that I was a bad mother. But things are much better now. I mean, it's 2023. Vicky's 5 years old, and she's seeing Benjamin as real dad. And I don't know if we're going to tell her exactly if he is even her dad or not, but we might do that when she is old enough to understand the consequences seriously, how serious it were. But now she has a baby brother named George. I could have been happy though to have Benjamin there for me the whole time in my family. At least, at least Robin is out of my life. Thank you for that. Thank you for listening.